I've taken deep offense to Graham Stephan's stance against paying for coffee.
Buying coffee is a waste of money and you should avoid it.
Graham Stephan is against paying for coffee, and I think Graham Stephan is wrong.
Cut that out. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't care how much you enjoy Starbucks. You cut that out right now.
Graham has also not experienced the magic of travel and the value it provides in personal growth.
Another big sacrifice that I made over the last 12 years is giving up the ability to travel for fun or go on vacation.
For only $4,000, you could easily travel internationally for a couple of weeks pretty comfortably. If you want a high quality holiday, you can easily do it for $10,000. Which is probably the amount one of Graham's videos makes. Graham has made videos about credit card points and churning credit cards, so the flights even in business class can be just a small fee.
I have yet to visit anywhere outside of North America.
A good airline's international business class is good enough for you to work whilst in the seat, or catch up on much needed sleep.
I have always wanted to take a few months off to go and travel Europe, Asia, and Australia.
Whilst traveling, you can create more unique content. You could come and interview people like me.
Australia.
But also, you can write a lot of this stuff off for taxes if it's a business trip. If your business is to make videos, then going to the Middle East or Asia or Australia or the UK or anywhere else to learn about business, then the whole trip could be business expenses. Here in Australia, there are even government incentives, depending on what you do, to actually explore opening a business overseas. So there is even government funding in some cases to travel overseas. The US obviously has all different types of tax incentives, so I'm sure there is plenty of stuff there you could do too. But back to the coffee. Is coffee that you can make for 20 cents at home worth $7 to buy somewhere else? Absolutely. In fact, a $7 coffee can even be a part of a frugal lifestyle. I'm even going to explain how $7 for a coffee is actually a steal, and you should be asking to pay more. And I know that's a provocative statement, but hear me out.
The $3 cup of coffee at Starbucks is absurdly expensive when you compare it to making coffee at home for 20 cents.
I'd also like to make the point that Graham Stephan likes to spoil himself with sushi. Now you can go buy a pound of rice for $1 if you buy in bulk. You can go get seaweed for free, catch your own fish, and now you have 2-cent sushi. Throw in a few cents for wasabi and or soy sauce if you buy in bulk, and the whole meal costs you less than 5 cents. I take offense to his anti-coffees message because I'm a coffee addict. But quickly, I want to say I'm a fan of Graham's, and this is coming from a place of adding to the discussion, rather than saying Graham is a scammer and doesn't know what he's talking about. So pour a coffee on the like button, and make sure to tell me why you think I'm right or wrong in the comments.
As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell.
As a coffee addict who admittedly spends way too much on coffee, I've spent $21 on an iced coffee before. A regular iced coffee. Nothing special, no special ingredients or anything to justify the price. I was earning an average income at the time, but I'm also the kind of person who looks at something like that and thinks, well, I have to try it now. And quite frankly, iced coffee has been my hobby for quite some time. Now, I've had times where I've bought a coffee and it's been a horrible decision and essentially I've been ripped off. But I've also had times where I spent a lot on something and had a unique experience as a result. In some places they serve civet coffee, which is usually very expensive because essentially a small monkey-like animal eats the coffee beans and then it goes through them and then is made into coffee afterwards, which is something I'm not game to try. It's supposed to improve the taste or something like that, but I'd love to know who figured that out and why they even thought to experiment it. But the going rate for that type of coffee is $20 or more. Back to why I think Graham is wrong. The truth is, when you pay $7 for coffee, you're not just paying for a coffee. And this is not some hippy-dippy statement that companies like to make about how their brand is more than just coffee. Going for a coffee is actually a cheap way to spend time with other people. A $7 coffee is cheaper than spending $35 on a meal that you could replace with $2 noodles. There's a difference between sitting at home drinking a Starbucks as opposed to going out to check out a new cafe with a friend. There are many times when you actually just need a break. If you've ever traveled and you're going around all day, a $7 coffee is actually a welcome break to have a rest. Regroup, get a little bit of a wake up with some caffeine. It gives you time to figure out where you're going next and an opportunity to try something new. When you travel, you also don't have the same connectivity, so you need the Wi-Fi to check your emails and whether viewers like you have subscribed to your YouTube channel. But seriously, if you have a business or a job where you have to check what's going on, even if you're on holiday, then you need Wi-Fi. So whilst traveling, a good coffee is cheap. As I said, it's also an experience. An example that springs to mind is when my wife and I tried Delcom while we were in Singapore and kept going back there because they have all different types of drinks that we don't normally have here, and we quite enjoyed it. Now, this is one area of perspective that Graham doesn't have.
One day, my dream is to travel the world.
He hasn't traveled overseas, which really does open your mind up a lot.
Now, positively, since I've chosen to delay my vacations, I can now travel in much better accommodations today than I could have of 10 years ago.
I would also say that waiting until you can afford to travel 5-star is also a mistake, because you miss out on a lot of experiences. Once you get to traveling in expensive places, you never want to go back. But traveling with a small budget is quite a life experience, and you won't come back the same person. You grow so much. You only need 2 weeks off to travel. You can pre-record videos or even create videos while you are gone. Here in Australia, trying a coffee is a real activity, like going to the movies or a restaurant. It would be normal to travel across the city just to have a good coffee. Again, it's a relatively low-cost activity, either as a date or a catch-up with friends or family, in comparison to the other alternatives, especially anything to do with alcohol. A coffee is very cheap and usually only have one, as opposed to a few alcoholic beverages. Coffee in a business is also very cheap. If you've got employees, taking them for a coffee is a great way to get them out of the office and somewhere more private where you can discuss issues in the office or make plans for expansions or other private conversations that you want to have. It's a more open environment because you can talk about whatever is happening without having to worry about whether someone else is listening to what you are saying. It's also a good place to check in with employees one-on-one, see how they are going, give them an opportunity to raise any issues, and do so in a low-pressure environment, as opposed to sitting in a meeting room where you're sitting across a boardroom table, which feels a lot more official and like a formal meeting. Plus, the cost of having a soundproofed meeting room, a coffee machine, and other stuff you need to have to provide your own meeting rooms is so expensive that even a very expensive coffee is quite cheap in comparison. Large businesses can afford to have those types of meeting rooms and amenities and even an in-house barista, but small and even medium businesses just don't have the budget for that. Also, staff appreciate being taken for a coffee. It's a small gesture, but it goes a long way. And also, it's a business expense. Now, in terms of Starbucks, how many people use Starbucks as their personal office? I can't count how many times I've been to a Starbucks in different cities and different countries where people basically work a 9-to-5 job in a Starbucks and they might buy 1 or 2 coffees only. But the cost of your own individual hot desk office usually starts at $500 or even $1,000 or even more depending on where you live. So you can buy a lot of Starbucks coffees for that same amount of cost. Now, you might be traveling or need to meet someone, and a Starbucks at $7 a coffee is a lot cheaper than hiring a meeting room. A quick check of meeting rooms around me, and they can easily cost $200 a day. One place is even $616 a day for a 6-seat meeting room, which is just absurd. But they also sell tea and coffee for $3.30 additional, or $4.40 for tea and coffee and biscuits. Oh, and that's only for one tea or coffee. It's $9.90 if you want tea and coffee all day. And if you're thinking of video conferencing, they charge an extra $220 per day. Putting that into perspective, if you went into Starbucks for a meeting of 6 and all went on Zoom, it'd actually be super cheap to pay $50 each per coffee.
Cut out the Starbucks entirely. Let's face it, you can do without the Starbucks. You don't need the Starbucks.
If you're traveling, hotel rooms can often have sketchy Wi-Fi. So somewhere like a Starbucks with good Wi-Fi is cheap to get some good work done. I've also found that when working at home that simply leaving the house to go get a coffee gives me a mental break from work. It breaks up the day, and quite often on the journey to the cafe, it gets my mind going on different thoughts, which can help you get over an obstacle that you were stuck on. The coffee and the experience of going to get the coffee can be a good jolt to get you going for the day. Could I go outside and walk around the block for free? Sure. But is that as exciting as going to get a good coffee? No, and it's not as enticing, so I'm less likely to do it. Getting a coffee is also a social experience. If you're going to a small family-owned cafe, usually you have a friendly barista who is social, and it's just good to have a chat with someone new. More than this, you're supporting your local community. A small local cafe is usually a family-owned business where a family might not be able to cover their bills if they don't have customers. So you're feeding your local financial ecosystem. Also, the 20-cent iced coffee doesn't factor in the cost of washing your cup, and that's got to be worth a few cents. So is he really being honest with the financials? And let's not get started on the depreciation of the cup. I'm joking obviously, but there is still some value in not actually having to wash up. If you go for a long drive or are doing something all day, you can't just bring coffee with you. So you might want an afternoon coffee, and now what do you do? If you're at the football and it's freezing, how do you get a coffee? You could buy a $7 water, or you could buy a $7 coffee. And it feels less of a rip-off to buy coffee. Going for a coffee is a great date idea too, because it gives you somewhere to talk and get to know each other for a significantly less cost than many other date activities, especially if you're starting to get to know someone. If you can't enjoy spending time together just having a coffee, then it's easy to fall into the trap of enjoying the activities you are doing with someone as opposed to enjoying the other person. The bigger point is you're not paying $7 for a coffee. You're paying for the whole experience that comes with it. You're paying to be able to enjoy a coffee while doing something and being somewhere, and the value of those experiences outweighs the value difference of a $7 coffee as opposed to a 20-cent coffee. I mean, I've also had coffee with friends where we've had a 2-hour discussion, which is completely invaluable. Certainly worth more than the $7 we spent on coffee. I see this same mindset in certain friends who get caught up too much in the monetary value of items and not seeing the value of the experience. Many people go too far the other way, but there is definitely a balance between living frugally and enjoying experiences. I'm a big fan of Graham, so this is not coming from a place of saying that Graham sucks, ignore everything he says. However, I think there is a bigger, more nuanced discussion here. Life is not black and white. Money buys us experiences, and whilst there is benefit to building wealth and living frugally, at some point it goes too far, and there needs to be some balance between enjoying your life and maximizing your wealth.